Well, welcome to Six Tackles with Gus for this week. So much to get through. Allegations of walkouts and cultural issues at the Bulldogs. The general manager of the club will respond to those. South versus Roosters. It is on again amid a crisis at Redfern. The judiciary ends the seasons of two gun forwards. Heaps of Ask Gus questions, and we preview round 27, although I don't know how we're going to preview it, Gus, because we don't even know who is going to be playing.
Very interesting times, isn't it? Very interesting times.
Amazing final weekend. We don't know who's going to be in the minor premier. We're not sure who's going to be in the top 8. Can you remember a final round like this where there's been so many machinations?
Yeah, plenty of times. We just forget them.
Yep.
But there are a number of permutations this weekend, and as the weekend evolves from Thursday night into Friday night into Saturday and Sunday, I guess by Sunday we get a clear picture of what's going to happen with that Sharks-Raiders game. But certainly there's conjecture around the minor premiership and the result on Thursday night, how it affects how the Panthers approach their game against the Cowboys and how that affects the Cowboys in their race for the top 8. What happens between the Rooster and the Rabbit on Friday night, which is a big one for those two clubs. The loser leaves the country. So there's a lot to play for this weekend.
The loser is deported.
The loser, winner goes on, loser leaves the country.
Look forward to your preview of round 27. 27 weeks of this. Before we go any further, Gus, congratulations on being nominated for a Logie and an Oscar, in fact an ACRA, as Best Podcast Host. Did that come as a surprise to you?
Yeah, because you're the host.
But this is your podcast. So the ACRAs, the Commercial Radio Awards, Gus is nominated as Best Podcast Host. And I get to go with him because Stories of Origin, which many of you would have listened to, is nominated for Best Podcast, Best Producer and Best Audio, and Matt White, our executive producer, along with Jordan, are going to be there for that. So we can have a podcast table, and if you get up, you win. You can do one of those great Oscar style speeches, wave it around, and
we'll see.
Yeah, and then you'll talk so long they'll start the orchestra just to get you off the stage.
We'll see.
We'll drag you off. Let's kick off this very big episode.
No.
Hey.
No.
That's the rule.
No. Dear.
Question 1, Gus. Do I need to change my text message alert?
I'm going to say this. Cowboys can win the comp.
He's sticking solid. Oh, you still think they can get there?
Well, there's always a chance. While there's
You're
breath,
saying there's a
while
chance.
there's life, there's hope. While there's life, there's hope. They'd have to win this week, and that's got to be enough to get them in the 8, and then they've got to go through 4 weekends of back-to-back games against the top teams in the competition, but they're a better chance than those that don't make the 8.
That's very true.
There's plenty that aren't in the race at the moment and haven't been for a while. So, it's been a nice comeback from the Cowboys. I don't know what happened to them early in the season. That's for them to look at in review for this season. They had a great year last year. As I say, a number of teams, I think, were affected by the World Cup at the end of 2022, what that meant for players returning to training for 2023. I think some sides just got off the pace early and haven't been able to recover. Cowboys have made a nice run at the back end of the year. They've got the talent. Anything could happen. I don't think this, as I said right at the start of the year, I think this competition, the winner could be well hidden. And whilst at times I thought it was over, that the Panthers were going to be too good for everyone, which I still think they are, the Jerome Luai injury has thrown a spanner in the works. So everyone would still think they're a live chance. And the Cowboys are there. Well, like I say, while there's life, there's hope.
Winning the minor premiership is a big deal.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's not celebrated as a big deal, and it's probably something you don't get recognition for in the years to come. But, like you said, this is round 27. You play 24 games of home and away in all sorts of conditions, in all sorts of time zones, in all sorts of weather patterns, and against all types of opposition, and you have injuries and setbacks and highs and lows, and you come out on the top of that home and away season. I think it's a badge of honour. I think it should be more rewarded. I've said plenty of times, I think it should be $1 million prize. And if it were $1 million prize, would the Broncos be resting so many players this weekend on Thursday night? Which is, obviously with the way it leads into the finals, the coaches can do whatever they like. They've earned the right to do it. There is no benefit to running first or second in this competition. You get exactly the same run into the finals as the first or second team. The Melbourne Storm, who can neither improve or go backwards with this last round, again, after an injury to Jerome Hughes, they probably thought, well, we're going to rest some players as well, so they've chosen to rest players, and it takes away a lot from the Thursday night feature. And then there will be accusations of teams, running dead to play a certain opposition or don't want to play at a certain ground, so they'll run dead to play in a different game, and which is all untrue, but certainly resting the players is a great temptation at this time of year, and I don't blame either side for doing it. If there was a more a bigger reward for being minor premiers, I'm quite sure the Broncos would play for it, because Thursday night gives them 10 days preparation into their next game anyway. With the luck of the draw, the Melbourne Storm and the Broncos have got lucky with the draw Thursday night leading into the final series and first round of the finals is a big bonus for them, but they're not even going to send their players around in that one. So I think if the minor premiership was treated better by the game, I think that would be a better incentive, and we wouldn't see these things happen at the end of the year.
What you do get, though, is to lift the grand old JJ Gilton and Shield.
Yeah, well, it certainly isn't celebrated all that greatly. It's certainly, not like it used to be when you picked up the JJ Gilton and Shield. You used to run off around the SCG with it, run off around the stadium with it, and carry it around with you.
Because that was what you got when you won the comp, wasn't it?
The victory laps now of just people hanging over the fence and getting selfies and celebrating with the crowd and going over to see mum and dad, and the old victory lap. In the old days, the victory lap was a victory lap. No one ran onto the field. The fans weren't on the field. You just pick up the shield and run around the field with the shield. It's a brilliant vision of that back in the day.
So up until 96 was the last year, the Premier would get that and the trophy, which has gone through various names.
Yeah.
And from 97 onwards, it's
the
minor Premier.
The Provan Summons trophy became the senior of the game.
But then it was the Winfield Cup before that and all those
Winfield
other things,
Cup and those ones. So the JJ Gilton and Shield used to be given to the winning premiership team on grand final day. It used to sit on the sideline there, you'd play for it, you'd win it, and then they'd all swap jerseys, and it looked like the wrong team had won when they see the photos later on.
Yeah, that's right. Gee, the jersey swap's gone out of fashion,
Jersey swap's gone out of fashion. Well, they give them to the people in the crowd now. They run around bare-chested.
Who'd you swap jerseys with in your day? You got a
No,
favourite?
I kept mine.
Did you?
Yeah, I kept my grand final jersey. I see my son wearing it around the house.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, the grand old JJ Gilton and Shield. It's been part of the game, I read here, since 1950.
Yeah, it's not celebrated anywhere near enough, and there are a lot of things about the part that are disappointing. But in the old days, you go back and get some old vision. You'll find some on YouTube, grand final victory laps, and
yeah, they're great.
And the great pictures with that. You picked up your team and you ran with your coach and you ran around the field. Nowadays, the whole club's down there. There's 1,000 people, all the staff, all the support staff. They wander around the crowd. They're greeting people in the crowd. It takes an hour and a half to get round. Used to be about a 2-minute run. You just run around, and some blokes would be limping, and some blokes would be carrying each other because they're all busted.
Yeah, you get chaired off if you're a champ.
Oh, that was your victory lap. That's what they called it, a victory lap.
And you get straight in the sheds and on the cans.
Now it's a long stroll.
Yeah,
a long.
It is good though. The clubs
stroll.
dedicate so much time to the fans.
Well, it happens every game now.
Yeah, that's right.
Practically every game. Certainly with your home crowd. You can't always do it with the away games, but certainly with your home crowd. But acknowledgement of the fans and encouraging fans to come along and feel a part of it, and the players do. The players like to do it. These days, they all go and greet their family and pick their kids up and run around on the field with them and play games with them and do all that sort of thing. It's a nice family feel about your home games and your the end of the game. But it's the JJ Gilton and Shield. I had great memories of watching that on grand final day.
You've lifted it twice.
Picking up the Shield, a couple of times.
3 times. 3 times.
I can't complain with my life.
No.
What's that?
I think that was just the way he said that. I thought there was something else coming. No. There should be a bye before the finals. Yes! So when this first came in the AFL, there was blow-ups because you lose the momentum and you got to wait a week and blah blah blah. Now I don't know whether the Melbourne AFL or the AFL community has changed their viewpoint on this, but do you feel that it would be a fairer way for all teams participating in the finals?
I do. Certainly it would avoid what we're seeing this weekend with clubs, do I rest my players or do I not rest my players, taking away from the feature. I don't think it's ideal. I love the old top 5 system, where only the minor premiers got a week off in the first week of the finals. They earned that. And then 2 played 3, 4 played 5. There are not as many games. I know commercially it's not as much. We've got 16 teams now. We're going to go to 17, 18 teams, 20 teams in the future. I think if we went to 20 teams and had 2 conferences, you could have 2 top 5 final series leading into a Super Bowl for the 2 winners at the back end of it. That's always been my preferred model for the future of the game, and the long distance future of the game, getting to 20 teams and having 2 conferences of 10. Playing your conference twice, playing the other conference once, and then getting to your top 5 in that division, and then play a top 5 final series. I think that's the fairest way. We've looked at the top 8 final series every which way. We went back to 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, but then some games didn't matter, and it wasn't important who deserved this or who. So now they've gone to the other system where, what was it? The old McIntyre system, wasn't it? And
yeah, that was 1v8.
That was 1v8, and now the top 4 play each other. All they do is change partners. It's interesting. I'm an old top 5 man, but I'm an old dinosaur, mate. No one listens to me anymore. They don't care. The way it's currently set up, I think it would help. It would help get players over injuries and more available. The unfairness this weekend too is let's say they play finals next week on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Right?
Yeah,
it's trying to work out who plays where, who gets recovery time. So, Broncos and Storm are going to play Thursday night. They get a nice 10-day lead-in or 9-day lead-in if they played the following Saturday or Sunday or even Friday. It's not so much of an inconvenience. But if you played on Sunday, well, this game's had 3 more days, clearly right. Preparation. So it's unfair. It happened to us a couple of times where we played on the Sunday, the last game of the competition, and had to win to make a top 4 or to get a home semi-final. You play on the Sunday, and then they want you to back up on the Friday night.
Yeah.
And that happened to us a couple of times, and it was almost impossible to back up in that 4-day period. We don't see as much of that now. They don't do the first round of the finals until they find out who the top 8 is and where the games could be played and who's what recovery time. I mean, there's a lot of...
It could be Brisbane and Melbourne again.
Well, it could well be, which they would both have equal recovery time because they're both playing this Thursday night. But as it turns out, they're having their own bye anyway.
That's right.
They've decided to have a bye. There's very few of the top side going around in this game.
At least they're both having a bye.
So they've made the decision that they're going to have a bye. Simple as that.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you could play them on the Friday night, and then Cronulla, who play on last game of the regular season, could play on Sunday, and they get their 7 days.
Yeah, depending who they've played against, who could have played on the Friday night or the Saturday, and so. Yeah, look. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm just saying it would solve a couple of the current issues, which have been caused by the fact that I don't like the system we're in. I think the other system was always better. That the minor premiers got the big advantage, and that was the reward for being minor premiers. There's only one minor premier. Now we've got first and second are treated exactly the same. Exactly the same. They both get a week off.
The prize money. You're right about the prize money thing. You should get something for finishing first. You don't get enough money for winning the comp, do you?
It should be 10 million for winning the comp. Should be 10 million for winning the comp.
What do you get?
Nothing. I don't know.
I think you get a couple 100,000.
About 400,000 or something.
Yeah, right. That's not a lot of money in the context of how big this game is.
No, it's not enough reward.
No. Hey, while we're on the scheduling thing, I know there's a big powwow today with the commission, etc. And one of the things they're talking about is the Origin window. And you're in a unique position because you've coached Origin. You're with us here at 9 from a broadcasting perspective, and you run Canterbury. What's the optimum outcome from a club perspective? They're talking about condensing Origin into 4 weeks. So would they play? What would they do then? Well,
they're all guessing because Origin works the way it is at the moment, for Origin. It doesn't work for club football.
No, that's right.
But generally we get the best teams in the 8. It hasn't inhibited them. What it does is for that 6 weeks or 7 weeks, the week lead into the first Origin and then a 3-week gap to the next one, the 3-week gap. So it works Wednesday night from a crowd and audience perspective, which is where the money is generated. This is why it makes it so valuable. All right, so you don't want to be messing with that. It doesn't work from a club perspective because you're going to play games without your rep players. You're going to have rep players backing up from Wednesday to Friday night or Saturday, depending on the draw and what happens from there. You're going to lose your rep players to injury, not be available for your club. And clubs then decide whether they're going to back players up or not back players. And to be honest, the game goes into a little bit of a lull during that period anyway. The club home and away game, The club games don't seem to get as much attention. They don't seem to get as many crowd. They're not as many viewers. It's it's hard during that period. So, but the Origin is the pinnacle of our mid-season rugby league. It is the number one winter product in the country, the number one footballing winter product in the country. Simple as that.
So is the proposal for 4 weeks...
They don't want to mess with that. I've always been open to a representative window, but that would mean cancelling club football. But you've got to replace it with other tiers of representative football.
Well, there's Pacific.
There's all sorts of other tiers, but then that comes into the qualification for Origin and playing for Australia or playing for other countries. And no one's really worked that out because, the international game's controlled by the international board. The NRL is just, their only charter is to administer a rugby league, the NRL competition.
Yeah,
that's their only charter. Their charter is not development or New South Wales Rugby League or Queensland Rugby League or Junior League football. It's not. It's had to take on a number of the responsibilities of that because the reason we got a commission in the first place was twofold. One, to stop media ownership of the game, which was detrimental to the game, and two, to give the game one governing body. They were the two motivations behind forming a commission and dissolving what was in the past. And we had a proliferation of too many governing bodies. But that hasn't happened either because Queensland Rugby League and New South Wales Rugby League got grandfathered into the whole commission process. So nothing was really achieved from that other than getting the media company out of the game, which was a bonus for the game. As soon as that happened, the rights deals doubled and doubled in the next two broadcast rights deals. Don't start me over that old.
Well, I'll just, because we're in yes and no, we've got a lot to talk about. Do you know, is the proposal for a 4-week window, would that cancel club football?
It would have to cancel club football, but I don't think the 4-week football gives Origin what it needs.
But
I don't think you could play Origin in 3 consecutive weeks.
Yeah.
There'd be that many changes to the teams. It's not funny. And the quality wouldn't be as good. And you don't get the lead in time. Like, Origin dominates the airways for a good 8 or 10 weeks in the middle of the season. Preceding the first game, the events of the first game, selections, form, injuries, suspensions, changes to the team, who wins, who'll sack the coach, all sorts of headlines that are going to go every Origin period that we go on. There is a whole 8-week window there where rugby league dominates all forms of media. It just does. It all forms of media. What do you want to do? Chop that in half?
Well, yeah. Look, what I have to say, for the first time this year, I noticed, and in the radio stuff that I've been doing this year too, a lot of the feedback, and I don't think I've seen this before. A lot of feedback from club fans has been, I'm tired of Origin taking my best players away from my club.
It's always been the way.
But I haven't seen such consistent feedback from viewers of the game that I have this year.
Yeah, because the clubs, the talent level at the clubs is nowhere near what it's been. The depth of talent is nowhere near what it's been. The depth of like if you're missing your top 2 or 3 players, your team can't score a try, let alone win a game. It's just hard for a lot of teams that are missing the representative class players out of your team. For the teams that have got 5, 6 or 7 Origin class players, well, they've probably won enough games leading into that and they'll win enough games afterwards. You need 5 or 6 Origin players in your squad if you're going to be winning premierships. That's just a time-honoured, fact about the strength of your team. The talent level dilutes very, very quickly when you take the top 35, 36 players out of the game because they're taking 18th men now and 19th men and people into squads and, they're not playing for their clubs that weekend and the draw then's unfair and it's, some people get the rub of the green on the draw, other people don't. It's very, very hard for the bottom sides. So if you're at the tail of the field and you lose 2 or 1 of your Origin players, it could well just cost you any chance of winning that weekend, depending on who you're playing. That's just how it works out. But it's always been like that. And they've always justified, well, the best team wins the comp anyway. All right, but that doesn't stop the fans from losing interest in their side or the team falling out of contention or losing games at that stage of the year.
So you think the status quo will remain?
Well, I think it will because they won't have a better solution. Other than closing the game down. My theory was to close it down for a 6-week period to run a second competition, a club called like an old Amco Cup knockout competition during that period, maybe for your club teams where younger players could play in it. I wrote a whole paper on this years ago, and then you could have some your Pacific Island tests. You've got Women's Rugby League now, which fills the content void. You've got certainly, if we promoted the old National Youth Competition as it would have, my aim was to have the National Youth Competition stand alone as a product itself by having the best players playing in that age group up to the age of 20, not allowing kids to play NRL until they'd reached the age of 21 or graduated out of that. I had a whole story on all of this that it was just too hard, and people, it was too hard for everyone. It's too hard for broadcasters, too hard for the NRL. No one wanted to give it the time or give it the thought, and we still have never addressed the issue. Up until recently, I presented to the Commission 2 or 3 years ago about the honest state of the game where it was, and as I say, COVID exposed the weaknesses in our game. It didn't cause them. But their response was, well, we can't have an international calendar for the next 4 years. We don't control international football. It's not our charter. I said, change your charter, because the international body's incapable of running international football. Or you need to get better people on there, or you need to work in cooperation with them.
How would the NRL wrest control from
we
the
need to buy?
international
We
body?
need to buy and help the English Super League. We need to develop New Zealand, who's our closest neighbour and our biggest rival on international. We need to promote in the Pacific Island, and they've done this to a certain degree. They have taken more interest in it. But the NRL needed to be the EPL of World Rugby League. It needed, if Rugby League was going to expand or going to be strong worldwide and have a strong international content, which we desperately need it. It's a point of difference between us and the other code of football in this country. Then we needed a strong international thing. So, but to do that, it had to be done by the NRL. It couldn't be done by anyone else, because the NRL contracts all the players anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So scheduling and time scheduling. So I believe they've tried to come out now with a roster for the next, or a schedule for the next few years, so that we got some certainty around when internationals are going to be played and how it's going to do it. I don't know that they've addressed the qualification stuff with it as well. There's a whole thing that needs to be done, but they've got to dedicate a team of people the time to actually go and research it and do it properly. You can't just visit it every now and then when someone complains about it and think you're going to come up with the answer. And then when this body does come up with what's been the best long-term interest of the game, then they've got to get the RLPA to buy off on it. They've got to get the clubs to buy off it. They've got to get the players to buy off it. They've got to get the media to buy off it. They've got to get the broadcasters to buy off on it. I mean, there's a whole range of things. If we set some dedicated people that actually know the game and said, okay, you go away for 12 months, and come back with a recommendation and give us an 8-year cycle of international football and club football, and how we're going to advance the game, and when are we going to go to 18 teams and 20 teams, and you show us where you're going to go, show us how you've researched all this. There should be a whole dedicated team doing that. Now,
sounds like a university thesis.
Well, it is. Well, it should be. It's the NRL, mate.
Yeah. How would they buy the English Super League?
I don't know. Just a brainstorm I had one day. The English Super League's just signed a new broadcast rights deal worth a hell of a lot less than what it was last time. So they're struggling over there.
Yeah, they left the existing
for money.
broadcaster.
Constantly getting phone calls constantly getting messages and phone calls from English clubs looking for players.
International football is in a better position in terms of talent and competitiveness that it's been in a long time. So it's something that needs to be fostered.
Because of the Pacific Island element.
Yeah, of course.
Because of the Pacific Island element, and the fact that all those players are now in the NRL competition. A lot of those players who are playing for Pacific Island nations are second and third generation Australians. They're born here.
Yeah, that's right.
Their parents were born here. They're not actually teams from the Pacific Islands. Kids aren't getting developed in the Pacific Islands to play NRL or representative football. They've got to migrate. They've got to go to New Zealand, or they come to Australia to come over and get the education and get the training. We need to help out more with that. So
is it doable to educate players in the Pacific Islands?
Anything is doable. Certainly to give the young fellas, the young players, some academy and programs, and get them playing the sport over there. They're not even playing the sport in those countries. And giving them the education on diet, training, and all those sort of things that the other kids get here when they're in those formative years in their junior programs, pathways programs here. And we could easily set that up. It's a bit of elbow grease and not as much money as what people think about. It's just dedicated people, and there are plenty of people passionate enough about this stuff to go and do it, and it would make a big difference in time. The problem is not a lot of people like making decisions beyond their own contract time. They only worry about what's happening right now. They're not worried about what's happening into the future. Very few people are prepared to leave a legacy anywhere.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is why he's nominated as best podcast host for the Acras. A serious matter, though. It's been a big issue for the last 48 hours at least, and this morning Bulldogs coach Cameron Ciraldo has spoken publicly at a media conference. He's defended the club's culture. He says he's been trying to drive winning standards. That's following claims an NRL player walked out of training 5 weeks ago due to mental health reasons. The player hasn't been identified because of the seriousness of his mental state, but it is reported he turned up late for training. He's a member of the top 30 squad, and as punishment, in inverted commas, which is common among most NRL clubs if someone turns up late or whatever, he was asked to wrestle a number of his teammates, up to a dozen, it is reported, for an extended period. It's reported a week later he then asked the club for time off due to personal reasons and hasn't been back to training since. The club is still paying his contract. A couple of other issues have been reported. One, that Braden Burns walked out of training after suffering a hamstring injury and hasn't been back. And another report that 8 players, up to 8 players, have threatened to leave the club because they're unhappy with the culture. The best way for me to handle this is to allow the General Manager of Rugby League at Canterbury, Phil Gould, to respond to the matters, starting firstly with that claim of the player walking away from the club.
There aren't too many general managers in the game that have got a podcast where you can come and ask those sort of questions, is it?
Nope.
Yeah, so it's taking a liberty there to be putting all this to me in this environment and on this forum. Our coach spoke at a media conference today. Media people were there and he handled it extremely well. This is one of those occasions where, as a club, we need to be very measured in our response, because there are some very sensitive issues at stake here. At the absolute priority is the welfare of the player involved, and to be honest, we're not saying any more about it simply because of that. The media needs to be very mindful of, and I think they're better informed at the moment, probably more informed than they should be, but they're certainly mindful of what's at stake here, and I doubt that this story goes any further, provided that we hold our peace, which we will, and we're doing that because of the sensitivity in the matter and the protection of the player, and that's what we want to do. Cameron Ciraldo has at all times defended his coaching style and the type of training that we're doing at the Bulldogs, and we all support that wholeheartedly. Other rumours of players no one's walked out, I can tell you that. No one's walked out of anyone. Certainly no player has complained to us at the club about anything around training or culture. They all work extremely hard. It's good to know now that the public understands how hard they work, because at times when you watch this play you'd wonder whether or not they did. But they work extremely hard. They're not getting the results on the field at the moment, and it's in trying to put our club back in the shape that best represents the Bulldogs, as it has done for many, many decades. It's a club that's prided itself on hard work and hard ethic, and there are a number of ex-players who have been very, very successful in their careers, who are currently with the club and involved with the coaching staff and the mentorship of young kids coming through, and we want to instill those values and instill that training work ethic. And it gets hard for some, it gets too hard for others, but the ones that come out the other side are the ones that you want to build your club around, and it's as simple as that. Other than that, I don't really want to be commenting on anything, because it's just too sensitive to be giving details of what did or didn't occur, or as to what effect that's had on anyone that was involved. It's as usual with these things, there are some exaggerations and some embellishments, but to even debate those issues is unnecessary at the time. I'm not going to debate them. We're quite comfortable where the position is. We're certainly very mindful of the mental health and welfare of the player involved, and there is a lot of sensitivity around that. And it's not as though he walked out after the event. He was still with the club for another week and then decided that he needed to take some leave, and he's been doing that since that time. We've kept in contact. He's had the very best of welfare and counselling and support. We've been waiting on some reports from medical people, which we now have in our possession. My suspicion is that details of that report have been leaked out in some way, shape or form, which is why the media has now suddenly seized upon the story. But if the media has been informed of that, they know how delicate they need to treat this, and certainly can't be pushing the envelope. The temptation from the media always is to try and get a reaction or to back us into a corner or have to defend ourselves, which we're not going to do because the issues are too sensitive at the moment. I think there is a quote there from the RLPA that they were approached over the incident and said that they won't talk about it because it's too sensitive. And that's because it is. Our priority is the welfare of the player, and it's as simple as that. As for accusations or rumours or text messages from disgruntled people saying that players have walked out, it hasn't happened. No one's walked out anywhere.
Has there been a group of players approach the club dissatisfied with culture or other matters?
No.
That hasn't happened?
Never at any time.
And please, if you don't wish to answer, please don't, because it is actually a workplace matter, because the Bulldogs are an employer. But you say that a report has been leaked. Now, a professional is bound by standards where they wouldn't be able to do that.
I don't know how that's happened, but and I haven't been contacted by anyone from the media. They've only rung the officials at our club looking for a response. But certainly in the reporting, it would see that even the media, whilst it has a hunger and a thirst for these types of situations and a hunger and a thirst for anything to do with the Bulldogs, have realised that there is also some sensitivities around this that we just don't want to be elaborating on, and we don't want to be a part of pushing this through the media any further than it needs to do. It's unfortunate, it happens from time to time, but so far as the club, we're strongly in support of the standards that we're trying to enforce at the club and the culture that we're trying to create, and turning around what's been a very poor last decade for the Bulldogs, and that will take time.
Is this a unique matter, or have you dealt with matters of similar nature in your previous roles? And would you imagine that other clubs are dealing with similar matters at the same time?
I'm sure they all are. I'm sure that I've dealt with similar matters over the years. I've certainly dealt with players that have had mental health issues that have never seen the light of day. People would be surprised how many players we have in counselling and dealing with mental health issues. It's become a big part of the education and welfare division of our clubs, become a big part of providing services to the player and the best practice to the player and support for the player. You got to understand that there are people around these players, like family, parents, managers, fans, who once they get wind of this can argue on behalf of the players what they think they're doing in the best interest of the players, but it's only exacerbating the situation, and they don't know the real story. I'm not saying that's the case in this situation, but we've been dealing with this for over a month, and the player's been getting the best of support and the best of treatment, and he continues to do so. And all he has asked for week is asked for more time, and that's what we've given him, and we'll continue to do that. He certainly didn't walk out. There's been no suggestion at this stage that he intends to leave the club, or there's no suggestion whether he wants to continue his career. We don't know, because we just haven't had those discussions. The football side of it has been pushed into the background. So I was actually due to meet with his management tomorrow morning. Once we got the report through on Monday, we agreed to meet on Thursday and then discuss what our next steps were to support the player and to see where we're going to go as a club and then him as a player. But there has been no discussion around that at all. All we have put as a priority at the moment is him getting the welfare, the treatment and the counselling that he's looking for at the moment. It was his decision. And he's just given us some medical certificates every Monday, and the medical certificate comes in to say, no, he needs another week, and that's what's happened. And no, I can't even go there. I mean, look, there's a lot of, I think I spoke to you a few weeks ago about there comes times in leadership where you can't really tell the truth and you can't really explain.
Yes.
Because it's just not in the best interests of other people that you care about. And so that we don't add fuel to this and keep it bubbling through the media for a few more days, which is not going to do the player any good. It's not going to do anyone any good. It's all right. It's been reported, so let's move on.
Okay. And
let's see that the player gets the treatment he deserves and needs, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So the other matters that we raised there relating to the group of players, Gus has said is wrong, and no one's walked out. There was Braden Burns' name was thrown up.
I have actually seen a text message that has been sent off to several media. It was bouncing around. It had that many misspellings and poor grammar in it. It make you wonder why you would even listen to.
Right.
I mean, that's media grasping at straws, and I don't know who instigated that text message and why. I haven't seen a name to it as yet, but given the the spelling mistakes and the grammar in it, it certainly wasn't anyone that was close to the mark, and no player has walked out. Okay. Well, who was the other one? Braden Burns. Braden Burns couldn't complete a session last week because of he had some hamstring issues, and he couldn't complete the session. Braden Burns didn't turn up for rehab the next day to have the hamstring looked at, so he didn't play on the weekend. But Braden Burns hasn't walked out on anyone, and he certainly had nothing to do with the training. It was just that he had hamstring tightness. His only breach was that he didn't go and get it treated the next day. But I had a meeting with him and his manager yesterday, and we explained that, and he explained what happened, and moved on. He was at training. He was there talking to me yesterday. He's at training today. So I don't know where all that comes. But that's
you've addressed those matters.
That's people. Like you get people agitating in clubs, and you get people agitating on the fringe of clubs or outside of clubs, or disgruntled players or disgruntled player managers, and all. There are a lot of people around here who seem to have a vested interest in causing trouble for clubs at different times, and that's not exclusive to the Bulldogs. It happens everywhere. Just how much of an appetite the media has for it, depending on who's the club and who's associated with the club. And
do you have a suspicion where this is coming from?
Yeah, of course I do.
You don't wish to,
but it's part of what we need to deal with to get the club back to where it needs to be. Simple as that. That's a whole different story there about the Bulldogs and how it got in this position and what needs to be changed for the Bulldogs to rise again as a force. We're the worst team in the competition right now, and still are, and have been for some time. So we need to change that. And there are a lot of things that need to change for that to come true. Mm-hmm. But we're getting there. We've got terrific coaching staff, terrific administration, terrific people working in the club now. Internally, it's a very happy and productive place. Our football team, has some ups and downs, and we hope that over the next few years that we can develop some talent and that we can bring some talent into the club, and hope that the on-field results reflect the hard work that they're doing off the field. But the coach and the staff at the club are certainly making no apologies for the intensity with which they train, because they train them, as I've always said, as a top team should train.
Okay, so Gus has addressed that, and given the sensitive nature of that specific issue that has been illuminated in the last 24 hours, it's probably better we just leave it all there. So thanks for answering those questions. I know people would be listening in today with a specific interest in finding out your thoughts or finding out the actual situation with that. So I think we've dealt with that. From the judiciary last night, there was a Canberra Raiders fan standing outside the judiciary dressed up in all of his garb. Did you see that? And he had a drum.
No.
He was dressed up like a Viking.
Was he doing the clap? Was he doing the Viking clap?
By himself. Well, he didn't have much to clap about because big Corey Horsburgh walked out with 4 weeks and then JWH walked out with 7.
Mm.
Season done.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Don't go there.
Well, Jared's incidents on the weekend were probably, grade 5 stupidity.
Well, his problem is he's got a massive rap sheet.
On the eve of the finals, knowing what the climate is like at the moment around the match review committee and judiciary and media, and we want to stamp everything out. Anything that's don't start me on all that. But it's his actions in that have left him open to this.
Yes. Given
his judiciary record and given the nature of the beast at the moment and where our game is on wanting to punish these things and suspend people, he's walked right into it, and he's cost the club at a very, very important time of the year. The Corey Horsburgh one, I don't know what was he charged with? Shoulder charge? I don't think it was a shoulder charge. I don't think it was an unduly unfair tackle. It was certainly a hard tackle. But the more we go with this, and I don't know who's running the agenda here at the league, anything that even remotely looks hard these days, we stop the game straight away. Everyone stops, everyone freezes, and we've got to send them off. Now, I don't know how we're going to keep tackling. Every tackle now where a player comes down with the legs, they put it in the hip drop category. players have been getting hurt and sore ankles and legs for years and years and years and years. They're not hip drop tackles. They're not the hip
But
drop.
you can see there is a dangerous hip drop tackle.
It's dangerous.
That is used at times.
But
they're not all hip drops.
There was a technique. There was a technique that was developed because some of our players, and the tackle technique we have to use these days because you can't start tackling around the legs.
Been through this.
I'll take you through the whole history of the tackle process and that sort of thing. But some of the players were just too big and strong.
Yes.
Too big and strong, and you couldn't control them. Even though they had two men in the tackle, they could still keep marching you and keep walking, and the only way to get them down was to drag them down from behind. And there was an element, there was a tackle that was dangerous, where you grabbed them around the waist and then you dropped your backside, you dropped your backside down onto the back of the legs, and that, we wanted to get rid of the cannonball one because the previous technique was to grab them up top and then zero in at their legs underneath and be the third man and grab their legs together. But people started attacking it too hard and attacking it from the wrong angle, and that was causing injury. And I never liked that technique right from the start. It's all very difficult. The tackle technique has been turned upside down over the decades, and it's all about speed of the play of the ball and tackle interpretation. And the game has done this to itself. So now we get too much reactionary commentary on it. Oh, because a bloke gets hurt, someone's got to pay the penalty for that. Oh, look at that, he twisted his leg. Oh, look at that, he fell on his ankle. Well, that's been happening for years and years. Everything about rugby league has a risk factor to it. Every part of it. You can't play the game without someone getting hurt. It's just a fact of life. It happens. But you can't be penalising people just because someone gets hurt. We can't tackle kickers. We can't tackle catchers. We can't tackle players that have just unloaded the ball. We can't. A lot of the things that have been dragged out of it because people worrying about little Johnny getting hit that way. Anyway, as I say, I'm a dinosaur.
4 weeks is a stiff penalty.
It's a ridiculous penalty. It's a ridiculous penalty. It's a ridiculous penalty.
And that, look, you compound his absence with Josh Papali'i being out for the season, and I'm hearing Jamal Fogarty might not play Sunday. Like that, that's.
I don't know where they want to go with the tackling technique. As I've said many times, it needs a summit. You need to get some smart people in there and a summit and say how you're making it nearly impossible to play. The game is getting more and more difficult to play because everyone's telling you what they don't want in the tackle. No one's telling you how they want you to affect it. Come in and demonstrate how you think this tackle should be affected. And every tackle is different, coming from different angles at different velocities with different shapes of players, different sizes, different heights. At different stages of the field, at different stages of the game. There is a whole lot of factors. Everyone seems to think that you can have the perfectly safe tackle every time you tackle someone. It doesn't happen.
No, it's the nature of the game.
Happen.
The game is a physical game.
But if someone gets injured with it, or someone gets knocked out with it, or someone can't get up off the ground with it, someone's got to be penalised. Someone's got to be sent to the sin bin. Someone's got to be suspended. It shouldn't be that way. There's not enough understanding. I don't know where they want it to go. I don't know what they think the perfect tackle is. Describe the perfect tackle to me. Describe it to me, and what's it look like, and how do you think every tackle is going to be made that way? It can't. It cannot be made that way. And your own rules and your own interpretations and your own penalising of what happens after the tackle makes that impossible and makes it It makes it so that there's no benefit to the defending team. It's just ridiculous. It's so frustrating. I don't know how coaches coach, mate. I don't know how players play.
I'd love to see them incentivise legs tackling again. Takes all that other stuff out of the game.
Well, what I do know is that whatever was happening in the 80s and 90s for slowing the play of the ball just to keep a common pace to the game and to get your defence in order and everything we were doing back then was far safer than the wrestling rubbish that we do today. The grips and the holds and the levers and the different tackles that we've come to, because the tackle technique is not conducive to getting people on the ground, but we need to get them on the ground. We need to stop the offload. Now you can't even put your hand on the ball. You're in danger of getting a strip. The stripping rule has contributed to it. The interpretation of the stripping rule, the interpretation of it's such a big subject. It really needs a summit from people. And the answer will be a pineapple, because I don't think I want someone at the league, I want someone at the judiciary or match review committee to come in and tell me what's the perfect tackle. And where do you think, and a lot of this has been brought on obviously because the fear of head knocks and concussion. Fair enough, all right. But the solution is not to tell everyone to tackle lower, which I think is the solution.
Well, not at the moment, no.
No, it's not, because there's going to be more head injuries. You have more head injuries tackling than you do getting tackled.
Yeah, that's right. I'll tell you when my faith, credit where credit's due, my faith was restored. Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. When Ramian shot out and put a shot on Ponga on the weekend. Now, we're all going, oh, no. And Joey nearly had a conniption.
I didn't.
Did you not get a little bit of a flutter in your stomach? Thinking,
No.
Uh-oh.
I thought, good hit.
Well, it was a good hit.
Of course it was.
It was a great tackle.
Of course it was. I wasn't the reactionary one.
No, but
it's that sort of
your
reaction.
Your immediate thought is, no.
It's that sort of reaction to that sort of tackle that scares league officials, and it scares the people responsible for rules and interpretation of rules and match review committees and social media, which is what they listen to. They don't listen to experts, they listen to social media. It's that sort of reaction, mate. It's created a lot of things in our game to the detriment. It's, the sensationalism of these types of things. It's bloody rugby league. It's football. People will get hurt.
Look, I'm just glad they didn't jump at shadows and find that he'd flicked him somewhere
above
the shoulders, because it was just a really
But I've seen blokes,
great tackle.
I've seen blokes put on report and suspended for that.
Yes, I have too.
Well, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Valentine Holmes spent 4 weeks on the
sideline.
sideline.
Yes, I have seen it. I've seen it. I've seen head clashes this year where blokes trying to do the same thing as Ramian did. Finucane earlier in the year.
You can't run out of the defensive line with any aggression. You ran out of the defensive line with aggression. What the hell's that? When did that? Did I miss a meeting?
Okay.
What's the hell? That's the game.
You've missed a lot.
That's what's supposed to happen with the game.
They don't invite you to the meetings anymore. That's the problem. They don't invite you.
Oh, thank God. Waste of time me going down there.
Ask Gus. What would you consider the top two biggest rivalries in the NRL today? Now, Johnny has asked this question. I'm wondering whether I suppose he means club rivalries. I mean, you might even interpret that, Gus, as being player rivalries. And what was the biggest rival or rivalry back in your day playing? That's a good question. Rooster Rabbit's pretty good.
Well, I think Rooster Rabbit's the ultimate rivalry.
You're on the wrong page if you're looking for the question.
Am I?
Yeah. That's why you can't find it there.
Okay.
There we go. We're up to that one.
Okay. Oh, this is an Ask Gus, is it?
Yes.
What would you consider the top two biggest rivals in the NRL today? Rooster Rabbit. And what was the biggest rival back in your day? Rooster Rabbit. I used to love the Parramatta-Penrith rivalry. That's the local derby out there. The
Bronco Cowboy?
No, I'm not a Queenslander. Well, good games, good theatre, but, as a kid growing up in Sydney and the old competition, I used to love the Bulldog Dragon rivalry.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was a good one.
I used to love the Dragon Parramatta rivalry. When I was a kid growing up, I loved the Parramatta Manly rivalry. I loved the Western Suburbs Manly rivalry.
I was just going to say, what about the Magpies and Manly?
Yeah, there's been some great rivalries over the periods. Then you had personality coaches, and coaches had rivalry. Clubs
Who was
had
Gibson's great rival as a coach? Did he have one?
No, not really. Not really. Greg Hartley.
The ref. Greg Hartley versus the lady that ran on the field and had a go at him.
He didn't like referees. But he coached in a lot of clubs, Jack.
Who was yours? Wayne?
Rivalry?
Yeah, as a coach. I don't
think I've had a rivalry.
Who'd you like? You've said here before you used to love coaching against him because it was a great challenge.
Well, you love coaching against the best coaches. Yeah, but I wouldn't call it a rivalry.
What about you versus Brian Smith?
The media. I always enjoyed. Smith was a tactical battle. It was a tactical battle with him because he was a very tactical, strategic coach. So you had to not only see what you wanted to see, you had to try and look at what he might be seeing and what he might be doing and what his reaction might be to it. Some coaches were strategic, some weren't. But I wouldn't say that I actually had a rivalry. I had competitiveness with a lot of people back in the day, which I always enjoyed, but I don't think I've ever had a rival.
What, Tim Sheens? Did you play under Tim Sheens?
No, I played with Tim. Played with Tim, but Tim was coaching Raiders back in the late 80s, early 90s when I was at the Bulldogs and Panthers. So we played together. We played against each other in some big games. But Tim wasn't a rival. He was an opposing coach, that's all. But nothing that that I think about there. Rival.
Okay.
Back in the Super League days, when the Super League competitions come back together, there might have been some rivalry between the different teams who'd gone off to different competitions. But a lot of it's media play-up. A lot of it's media promoting the game and trying to drag the personalities into it or drag the clubs into it. But if you want genuine rivalry, Rooster Rabbit, that is a genuine, and I've seen it from both sides. I've seen it from the South Sydney side, and I've seen it from the Roosters side. I've seen the fans of both. I've seen the players of both. It's and our local rivalry in my younger days as a player and coach, and in more recent times with Parramatta Penrith. It's a big one. The fans really love that rivalry.
That's why Para have a good record.
Parramatta Penrith is a more it's a different rivalry to the Rooster South rivalry. The Rooster South rivalry is very, very serious. It borders on anxiety and hatred, and it means a big deal. Parramatta Penrith, they enjoy the rivalry, they enjoy the competition, and they enjoy the banter. Roosters and Rabbits, they don't enjoy each other at all. They don't like each other at all.
There's a good answer to a good question, Johnny. Thanks. Now, Kirsten, one of our lady listeners, great to have you with us. If given the chance for a do-over, what's one thing you'd change in your playing days or your coaching days?
Nothing.
Come on.
Nothing.
That's not an answer.
Wouldn't change a thing.
Would you change the result of the 1990 grand final?
No, because it made us better in '91. It was all for. I wouldn't change anything.
What about the day you got
If I was reincarnated, I want to come back as myself.
I would too.
Yeah, I got no complaints about. There've been tough times. There've been some very, very difficult times. There's been some terrible times. There are some things that have happened in my life that we'd all like to change. But you're talking around football. No, there's nothing I would change.
Yeah, player as a coach. What about the day? Would you change the day? And you told me the story that didn't you get your leg or ankle broken at North Sydney Oval, and you thought you were a chance of getting picked in the Origin team?
Yeah, but I didn't do it on purpose.
No, but would you change the circumstances?
Well, I don't know what would have happened if I didn't.
Well, you probably would have played Origin.
Well, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe I'd have been terrible at it and never got another gig. I don't know. That's just what happens. I got a lot of terrible injuries in my life, when I was playing days. So, my career was, cut in half probably for the amount of games that I could have played or should have played. But I still loved my career. I loved playing. And as most of us, when we get too old to play, we try and contribute in other ways, in coaching and administration, and that's what I've done.
Kirsten, there's your answer.
So I've
not
been,
a thing.
I've been blessed. My life has been blessed. For the major part, and my career in football and in media and all that has been blessed. I never planned any of it to be that way. I never grew up thinking that's what I was going to do with my life. It just happened. So I wouldn't want to change anything just in case it changed the course of events.
Good point.
After that. So I'm sitting here today very happy with my life and very happy with the way it's going.
You'll be happier in a month's time if you win the ACRA for Best Podcast Host.
Yeah, well, that's something I never grew up worrying about doing, and nor do I worry about doing it today. It seems to be a very big deal with you.
Oh,
do you want to be the host? Why don't they nominate you as the host?
Because it's your podcast.
You're the one that does all the.
You should the
business.
We need to find some of those famous Academy Award speeches, and we'll train him up. I don't know who asked this question.
When they first asked me to do a podcast, I said, "What's a podcast?
What's a podcast?
What's that?"
Well, there's your first line.
What's a podcast?
There's your first line of your acceptance speech.
What's a podcast?
I still don't know what a podcast is.
They were filming this for 2 years before I knew I was on camera. I didn't know this was on camera.
I know.
People go saying you don't look at the camera. I said, "What camera?" I said, "Is this going to air somewhere?" I didn't think it was going to air anywhere. What is it, on YouTube or something?
Shut up, you know. Who's the fastest man in the NRL at the moment? I don't know. Josh Addo-Carr, Jason Saab, Lofi Khan Pereira, The Hammer, or Dom Young?
What about the boy at Manly?
Saab?
No.
O'Collar?
Yeah.
He's quick.
He's
a good fullback.
He
played fullback as juniors. He was super at fullback.
Mm. There's some swift people out there.
We forgetting anyone? I mean,
Josh is the older of all of those. Yeah.
The Hammer. The Hammer's lightning over 30, but does he sustain it?
They're quick in different ways. They're quick in different ways. And speed's relative sometimes to those around you. The boy at the Gold Coast,
Khan Pereira.
he is extremely quick. He is he is frighteningly quick. And Kohler is very, very quick as well.
Yeah.
To actually, and I actually have access to the guy who trains a lot of these fellas, and he's given me his answer.
Is that Fabry?
Over certain distances. He seems to think over 100 metres, Saab is the quickest.
Okay.
But at varying distances along the way there'd be different leaders.
Geez, I'd love to find out over 40 or 30, 20, 40, 60, 80. What do you think? Do you know?
Yeah.
What does he say?
Well,
I'm back in the goal. I'm back in Canterbury over the shorter trip.
Yeah, could well be. Could well be. He once told me that if you could make the race 80 metres, Josh Addo-Carr, he said that would be the changeover point.
Okay.
That's when Saab would pick him up and go past him.
Ah.
He said, but anything up to 80 metres, he thinks Addo-Carr would get into stride quicker and hold him.
Is that length of stride, do you reckon?
Length of stride.
Because he's got huge
and their training, their professional training. Like, Josh Addo-Carr's had plenty of sprint work. But he said to me at the time, when Josh Addo-Carr was at his top, and I was saying he was the fastest man on the planet, which he was, he said to me, and they wanted them to race. And he rang me and he said, if you make it a 75-metre race, he said, Josh will win. If you make it 80 metres, it'll be, that'll be about the point where Saab takes over. And that's what he believed. He thought Saab would be too strong over the 100. So that was his interpretation. But when you watch these other fellas, Philip Sammy's very quick. He's had some great chases.
I'll tell you, he's another Titans bloke, Keeney, the little fullback.
Yeah, he's quick in other ways, but he is very, very quick. There are some quick ones around. Yeah.
There you go. I'm not sure I asked that, but it was a good one. Scotty B, what'd you make of Ryan Pappenhausen's return? What do you think he'll do for the Storm in the finals? He's starting this week.
Yep, good. Well, he needs to start just to get some miles in the legs. It'll be interesting to see where they go with that into the finals, whether they continue to play him off the bench and keep Nick Meaney, because the side's going well with Nick Meaney at fullback. What's the prognosis on Jerome Hughes?
Week 1 finals back.
Week 1 finals back. Well, that's a bonus. So Pappenhausen will be a part of their finals campaign. Just whether he starts or comes off the bench or what roles they put him in remains to be seen. And I think there'll be some players that go around for the Melbourne Storm Thursday night, and this is where it's important. All these players playing for the Broncos and the Melbourne Storm mightn't be their first picks at the moment, but they will be desperate to go well. All of these players will be desperate to play really well in the hope that if someone gets hurt or the coach is looking for something different, they can provide it. So whilst it mightn't be on paper the attraction that it could have been, that won't mean anything to the players that are actually taking the field. They'll be out there to perform and to impress their coach and to hopefully be a part of the finals campaign at some stage.
Who was your favourite player to watch growing up? Asked Matt.
My favourite player growing up. My favourite players were Johnny Raper, Graham Langlands, and Billy Smith, who were a part of great Dragons teams back when I was coming through. Had a great love for watching Arthur Beetson play football, who I saw as the greatest forward of all time. And that's in your impressionable years when you're young. I actually got to play against Arthur, which was a thrill.
Yes, you said that.
I used to love Rod Reddy as a player. I love players that were creative, forwards that were creative. And of course all the great players in the 80s that I played against, or around the era that I was in, there were some great players there. But I tend to remember before that when I was a kid growing up and what I used to see. And but certainly the Langlands trio, the Dragons trio, Raper, Langlands and Smith were my inspirations. They were the ones that had me fall in love with the game and take it up.
You got very emotional when you paid tribute to Arthur Beetson on his passing. Was that because of your adoration of the man?
That and the fact that I'd worked with him at the Roosters. When I got to the Roosters in '95 to coach, Arthur was our recruitment manager. I got to know him really well.
Yeah.
Lovely man. And he was a player. He was an older player certainly when I was starting my career out, and I got to play against him a few times. Devastatingly good player, but a great bloke with it. Very supportive, very supportive, and always encouraging. Even when you played again, encourage. I hit him in a tackle one day. I hit him with my best. I was young. He would come at me, And I hit him with absolutely everything. I knocked him to the ground. I was really proud of myself. And when I looked up, someone was scoring a try under the post. He just offloaded. And he helped me. He said, good tackle, son. Good tackle. I said, he was a gentle old thing.
So he was a gentle bloke, was he?
Gentle, yeah.
You would never guess
I
that,
wouldn't cross him.
No.
But he was a gentle and very kind man.
Yeah, that's nice.
Helped a lot of players. Helped a lot of young
nice.
players. Gave them opportunities and do it. No, he's very, very gentle. Very. He loved life. He really did. It was sad when he passed, but
very sad.
Yeah, he was a big part of the Roosters club, obviously, and I got to know him pretty well there. And he was always very, very supportive, always very helpful, always very, very encouraging. Never had a bad word for anyone. Helped kids. Great bloke. But he was like that as a player. Even though he was dynamically good on the field, he would be encouraging you on the field.
Well, that's really...
And acknowledging anything that you did and put his arm around you at the end of the game.
What a lovely insight.
He was just a big, cuddly bear.
6 tackles trivia. There's a couple of hints for you here, because you'll need them, I think. The last time the Broncos won the minor premiership was in 2000. Is that right? 23 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Only one player from that team played in every game that year. Who was it? Hint 1, he's not a Queenslander. He was born in Dubbo. And he also played for New South Wales. And he won a premiership at a different club. Good question. I cannot believe Brisbane haven't won the minor premiership since the Sydney Olympics. 23 years. But one player in that team played every game that year. He was a New South Welshman and he won a premiership at a different club. After that, there's another clue.
A New South Welshman. Year 2000.
Good question. Hard.
Yeah, it is a hard question. I think Takirian Sailor were the wingers.
He's a New South Welshman.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of their team.
Yeah,
They played
right,
Roosters in the grand final.
Yep.
I played Roosters in the grand final. The simple answer is I don't really know. Chris Johns? No, he was a bit before that. I don't think Chris Johns was from Dubbo.
Here's another clue.
What position he played?
He's a Clive Churchill medal winner.
Oh, crikey. Luke Prittis.
Correct. Correct.
He won it with the Panthers.
He did.
I was getting through to the forwards, and I was just trying to think who was... Yeah, Luke Prittis.
Luke Prittis. Well done, Gus. Good question, that one. The NRL's celebrating a slice of history this week when 2 women referee a game under the single referee system for the first time. It'll happen twice this weekend. Belinda Sharp and Casey Badger have each been appointed to 2 different games. Belinda will do the Manly versus West Tigers game. Now, Belinda has actually refereed an NRL game before. That was in the 2 referee system.
Mm-hmm.
And Casey is going to do Gold Coast versus Dogs on Sunday.
Was Casey not a pocket referee at some stage? Did she not pocket referee in an NRL game?
I believe not.
Didn't she?
Maybe she has. Maybe she may have.
One look, Casey. She's the best bunker girl.
Ooh, maybe she can be the bunker and referee.
Yeah. Well, at least we'll get common sense.
There you go. Congratulations to Belinda. Congratulations to Casey.
There's not a lot of common sense for the rest of them.
Do you reckon the men, will they be politer?
Eh?
The players, will they be politer?
They're going to have to be.
Will they?
They're going to have to be. The thing is that a lot of players today have grown up with the women refereeing in lower grade football. They've been refereeing reserve grade and under 20s and junior rep football for some time. So they've probably grown up with the etiquette associated with that.
They have to not call us sir.
But well, yeah. This is the first time that they'll be refereeing with microphones on. So they've got to be very careful.
Do I have to remind your team that you can't call... Well, I mean, you probably can. Maybe you can. You can't call Casey sir. You've got to call her ma'am.
Ma'am? I don't know if that'll be in the vocabulary. Best idea is not to question them. You won't need to. They'll do this. And they'll do it sensibly. Can't say that everything else is done sensibly. But
Now, NRLW Round 6 recap. Now, a player that has jumped out of the ground this year is Tegan Berry at the Dragons. She has been dynamite. And she delivered one of the greatest NRLW performances ever, scoring 4 tries with 256 running metres from 25 runs, as well as 12 tackle busts on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Big effort. Eels got their first win of the season over the Cowboys. Lauren Brown kicks her second match-winning field goal of the season. She's a great kicker and an excellent player. And the Broncos make a big statement with a big win over the Raiders. I'm calling this game Raiders versus Knights from GIO Stadium at 11:05 Saturday morning. Interesting. Canberra back at home off the back of a loss. Newcastle, very talented side. That'll be a good game.
Could be.
Are you going to give tips on these? Or you
Sorry, you want me to give a tip?
Well, I'd like to, if you're comfortable doing that.
Night too good for
Night.
Raider. Yep.
Broncos Sharks, 12:50 Saturday.
I think Bronco too good for Shark.
3:10 Saturday. Cowboys Dragons in Townsville.
That's a really close one. I'll give it to Cowboy in Townsville.
All right then. Titans Tigers, Seabus Super Stadium, Gold Coast, midday Sunday.
Titan.
And Roosters Eels.
Rooster.
That's in Gosford. For more detailed analysis of NRLW, Marley and Ruan with NRLW Weekly. It's out every Wednesday. Thanks to Bluebet, previewing round 27. I don't know how you're going to preview this. What are you really gambling with? Free and confidential support, gamblinghelponline.org.au. Thursday night footy. Broncos $1.65. Melbourne $2.25, kickoff $7.50, live and free here on 9. Now, I mean, they're all out. Walsh is out, Mam's out, Reynolds wasn't there anyway, but he's not being rushed back. Payne Haas is out, Carrigan's not there. He might miss a couple of weeks, they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Melbourne, same scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Better pull the teams up here.
So, and this is the thing, Bronco plays Storm tomorrow night. If Bronco wins, Bronco plays Storm in the semi-final a week later. All right? If Bronco loses and Panther wins and Panther becomes minor premier, Bronco plays Warrior. If Storm wins and Bronco loses, Storm could end up playing Panther. So do you think they ever sit and think about who their likely opponent might be and whether or not a win or loss?
I don't know, Gus. What do you think?
I don't know. What do you think?
Why don't you answer the question?
It's something to put out there across the airwaves, isn't it?
Do you think maybe that's why they've rested all their players?
I can't make those sort of interpretations at all. It's just interesting of how there's no guarantee of what's going to happen in week 1 of the finals, depending on the results and how they play. But it would appear that neither the Storm or the Broncos have put too much value on this 2 premiership points, have they?
So, but Melbourne are going to finish 4th regardless, aren't they?
Yeah, they can't improve and they can't go backwards.
Right.
They'll either play Bronco or Panther. And Bronco, whether they win or lose, will either play Storm or Warrior.
Yeah. Do you think they'd mind? Storm or Warrior?
No, they shouldn't.
They'll host.
Yeah, they'll host.
The answer's a pineapple. I don't know.
Well, it is.
What do you want me to say?
Well, it is.
How are you going to tip here? I don't know.
I'm not tipping anyone. I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, they do get Tristan Saylor. He's had a few games this year.
Yeah.
Josh Rogers, a young 5'8" debuting. Jock Madden's been the regular halfback. They've still got Flegler.
How long will Flegler play for?
I don't know. Pappenhausen's starting at fullback. Wishart's been there. Bronson Garlick's played hooker a bit this year.
Still be a good game.
It'll be a good game.
All these blokes will be flat out, but you want to tell me who wins? I got no idea who wins. I got no idea. I'll say Bronco.
Okay.
Because Storm, the result just doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're right.
It just doesn't matter.
Okay. I don't know. This is what I mean. What sort of a preview is this going to be? 6 p.m. Friday. Manly $1.25 against the Tigers at fullback. You know, the Tigers on the weekend. I call that game with Daryl and Gal for the continuous call team. And after 20 minutes, I'm thinking the upset could be on here, but they just didn't. They didn't play the full game. They started really well, the West Tigers.
Yeah.
But I suppose the game goes for 80 minutes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With respect to team news, Kohler's still playing fullback, so there's no need for them to rush Garrick back. He's a dynamite player at fullback.
He is. Saab, Morgan Harper. Yeah. Look, I think Manly wins that.
Okay. I need to go to the right page here with all the changes. Here we go. Now, here's the clash. The Book of Feuds. Russell's had it open all week. Gus reckons the Roosters started all the text leaking.
I didn't say that.
Didn't you?
Danny Weidler said that.
There's the Roosters.
My incredulation was, so out of all this that's gone on this week, someone at the Rabbits has decided that someone at the Roosters leaked the text message.
Clever.
I think someone at South had blamed Roosters for climate change.
Clever.
I think, yeah. So I don't know how that's come about. That's one of the more weird things I've ever heard in my life.
How many do you reckon we'll get to a core on Friday night?
I don't know. Should get
50,000?
Should get 50,000. They're both from eastern suburbs. It should be played at Allianz.
It should be played at Allianz. No Latrell, Blake Taft's there. It'll be interesting to see what sort of emotional rebound there is, given all the drama around South Sydney, which we haven't talked about today because I think we've talked about it enough. For the Roosters, though, Teddy's back. Manu is out. Well, actually, sorry. Manu's been named, but he's not going to play.
You wouldn't think so.
He can't play.
Well, only unless that hamstring was more neural pain than actual tear. But I haven't heard any reports of a scan and what's actually happened to him. If there's any tear whatsoever, he's not playing.
And the big one's JWH. The record says that when he's there, they're a much more formidable outfit. So Fletcher Baker's got the job in the starting team. Who knows? $1.80, $2 too on Blue Bet. Rabbitohs slight favourites.
Yeah, look, I can only imagine after everything that's happened in the last couple of weeks that Rabbitohs aren't gearing up for something special here, and it's a case of loser leaves the country. I mean, at the start of the year, you would never have entertained the thought that one of these two teams would miss the top 8, but the loser does here. The loser misses the top 8. For Roosters, they've made a good run at it at the back end of the year. Might be a little bit too much, too little, too late. But in their last couple of wins, I don't think they've been overly impressive. They're games that they were probably expected to win, but took a long time to get on top and win them. And now with a couple of injury concerns and suspension, and Rabbitohs coming off the bye, and given everything that's happened in the past thing, I slightly favour the Rabbitohs. I slightly favour South. I think it'll be outstanding theatre. It always is with these two teams, and it's going to be no place for the faint-hearted. They'll be into it. But if Latrell was playing, I think South would be certainties. That's the X factor. So I'll give them a slight. I really don't think Roosters have truly hit their straps. They haven't had that win where I said, well, they're back. They've kind of won and got their way to wins against sides that they should be beating anyway.
Walker went well.
He went good. He's a good player. He's their future. But I think Rabbit will win that one.
All right, Dolphins Warriors early game Saturday. Jesse Bromwich is back now. The Warriors are resting players too. So Chance, Dallin, and Johnson are out. So Tuapiki, young fullback. Ed Corsi's in. Donald Volkman's playing halfback. Damare Martin comes back to play at 5'8". Now, Metcalf's got a hamstring too. I don't know what the prognosis is on him, but he's been super. And Wade Egan's having a break too. Still a pretty good team, though, the Warriors.
Yeah, it is. And
Suncorp this game.
Yeah, and when you're on a winning run, you're on a winning run. I think they badly needed to give some players some rests. As I said to you, this is the first time they've been to the finals for a number of years, and there was just signs over the last few weeks that whilst they were winning on culture without doing it really easily, as they were probably a couple of months ago when they hit a real purple patch of form. And some changes like this and thinking about wanting to be available for finals the next week, where the Dolphins, it's their last game, they know it's the end of the season, they started the season with a bang, they've struggled to get some wins at the back half of the year. This might be their chance to cause an upset. I'm going to go for a Dolphin upset here. I think the Warriors' minds will be too much on the first week of the finals, and when it comes to the crunch, can they really go in there and put their head in the way and do the work? I think that maybe the motivation might be slightly more with the Dolphins than the Warriors here. And if they're looking to win one before the season finishes, this could be one for the Dolphin. I'm going to say that's the potential upset this weekend.
Well, it's not. They're $1.55 favourite.
Dolphins, are they?
Yeah.
Well, it shows you I'm a good judge. Dolphin wins.
Okay. Now, 5:30 Saturday, Bluebet Stadium, Penrith. So if Brisbane win, all these blokes that have been named, they've named Edwards, they've named Taruva, they've named, Cogger and Cleary will probably play. Luke Summerton's been named to play at hooker, so there's still no Mitch Kenny. Yo's been named, Martin's been... They've pretty much gone full strength.
Yep.
Tungo's on an extended bench, so I'm hearing he might play to try and get a run before the finals.
Yep.
So if Brisbane win, they've got the minor premiership sewed up. So I'd imagine there's going to be mass changes. Correct?
Maybe.
Bearing in mind, too, at $3.50 on Bluebet at the moment, the Cowboys have to win to be any chance.
That's the one thing we know going into the game.
Yeah.
The Cowboys cannot afford to lose, otherwise their season is over. There is certainly in that, on the bench and in the reserves, Isaac Tungor, Thomas Jenkins, Luke Garner, Matt Eisenhuth. These fellas, Jamin Salmon, are all capable NRL players and can go out and play in that game. I'm holding on to the thought that they think any time that they can spend with Cogger at 6 and the other players around him is going to be good preparation for the finals. I think it would be silly to waste the opportunity to give them some real game time together, Cleary and Cogger, to make up for Luai. I don't think Luai's coming back. I think he's 1,000,000 to 1. Yeah. I don't think he's coming back this year. So more time spent playing together for Cogger and Cleary is going to be a benefit. They get Dylan Edwards back, which really helps. And they get Crichton and maybe Tungor back into the centres, which helps their defence enormously. The forward pack still strong there. Luke Summerton's filled in at different times. Sonny Luke on the bench will play some. Lindsay Smith, Spencer Lennon, Zach Hoskins. They've got plenty of depth. Desperation from Panthers? Probably not. So
They wouldn't want to lose 2 in a row before the finals, though, would they?
I don't think that would worry them. I don't think the loss would worry. How they played would worry them. I think they got a little bit frantic the other night when Luai went off, and their defence broke down on both edges. But I put that down to the fact they had new centres playing there, a couple of young blokes. They had Peachy on one side, and they had the young boy from the lower grades playing in the centres, Mon Debut. What was his name? Anyway.
Oh, yes, McLean, Jesse McLean.
Cowboys are capable. Cowboys, well,
they're going to rip and tear. They've got
absolutely.
80 flat-out minutes to try and get in the finals.
Absolutely. Now, if Cowboys win, they do make it, don't they?
I think so.
Can they win and not make it? I don't think so.
I don't know. My head calculator's not working.
Yeah, so the Cowboys, if they win, would go past the loser of Rooster and Rabbit. So the Cowboys win, they're in.
So what happens to Canberra?
Depends what happens with the other teams in Canberra. Canberra got a horrific for and against.
So if Cowboys win, they
go
to 32.
One of.
Oh yeah, so the Raiders will miss out.
Yeah, one of Roosters and Souths will make it, and then it's either Cowboy or Raider if Cowboys win and Raiders lose.
Wow.
So if Raiders lose, they're vulnerable. If Cowboys
win. If Penrith win, Raiders are in.
If Penrith win, Raiders should be in, yes. And then Raiders would know on Sunday that they're in.
Okay.
Or they might have to find it on Sunday. Oh, well, yeah, I suppose if Raiders beat Sharks, they're in.
What if they
lose? It's only if Raiders lose, they're out.
Yes.
If Raiders can beat Sharks at Shark Park, they're in.
Yes. But what if Penrith beat the Cowboys and the Raiders lose?
If Penrith beat the Cowboys and the Raiders lose, Raiders are in.
They'll finish 8th.
They'll finish 8th.
Okay.
Yes, they'll finish 8th.
I don't even know if are you going to tip here? I don't know. But you don't even know he's playing. Penrith.
Yeah, and I don't know with what intensity they'll play.
Yeah.
I would tend to think Cowboy. Too much to play for.
Cowboy. All right. 7:30 Saturday night. Dragons $1.90, Knights $1.90. Newcastle resting a stack of players as well.
Yep, they've earned the right to do so.
Although, notwithstanding that, they do have. There's no Ponga and Gagai out of the back line. They're resting Crossland. They're resting Frizzell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it. So they're still strong.
They're strong, but do you think they won't have next week on their mind. I don't want to get hurt. I want to play in the finals. You know, even though I'm out here, I'm doing my job. But you know, can I really?
They won 8 in a row.
Yeah, I know. I think the finals are going to be on their minds. I think Dragon can win. So I'm tipping Dragon.
Sunday, Bulldogs to beat the Titans, and then Sunday afternoon. Well, look, depending on what happens for the rest of the weekend, this could be massive.
Well, I don't care what happens on the weekend. Sharks will beat the Raiders.
Okay. Well, they've got all those blokes out, haven't they?
Sharks will beat the Raiders.
Yep.
I just can't see the Raiders winning that game.
Nico's back here. Not disappointed with the Sharks on Sunday, were you?
No, I thought the first half was brilliant football.
Well, yeah,
it was
sure.
really
the
good.
back end of the game, though.
When they got behind, their whole demeanour changed. They led 6-0 and it was 6-all for a long period of time. It was toing and froing and everything like that. And then when Newcastle went 12-6, I felt a different complexion on the game, and Newcastle were just too good for them. Anyway, I'm going. What am I going? I don't know. Bronco, Sea Eagle, Rabbit, Dolphin, Cowboy, Dragon, and Shark.
And Para have already finished their season, but they did have the awards last night, and I want to give a shout-out to all the recipients. Okay. Clint Gutherson was the Ken Thornett medalist, which was just a lay-down misère. He's been unbelievable. He also got the Players' Player. The Jack Gibson Coaches Award, Will Penasini. The Eric Growth Rookie of the Year Award, Vidamu Greg. The Ray Price Community Award, Junior Polar. And then the Bob O'Reilly New South Wales Cup Player of the Year, Luca Moretti. Kai Rodwell, the Coaches Award. Then Jersey Flag Nick Lanaz and Brock Parker, and Club People of the Year, Steve Murphy and Monique Austin. So congratulations to everyone there at Parramatta. Fascinating weekend, and this time next week we'll be chatting about the finals. Look forward to seeing you over the weekend.
See you, Matt.
That's 6 Tackles with Gus for this week. Hope you enjoy the footy right across the weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website